Looking to inbound. Gets it to Griffey. Layup is gone! It's gone! What a game! They're rushing the clock. What a game! Illini have won on a Griffey layup. They have upset number one. Sheelow steps up, going deep. Got Langford over the middle. 30 of Western Michigan to the 20, to the 10. He's gone. Touchdown, Illinois!
This is the Illini Drive here. We're here for an hour of Illinois sports talk, and I'm Jamal Collier here, joined by my guests at this time. This is Joey Gelman, Torrence Sorrell, and Eliot Sill. A lot to get into. We had a Super Bowl, a not-so-Super Bowl, I guess they probably should call it, after the Broncos were dominated last night by Seattle. And we have a lot to talk about. Illinois basketball got down, made a close made it a game, and then almost pulled off the victory here. Do we have an intro here to play, guys? No, I guess we're going to go ahead and get right into it.
Clark did a good enough job, I think.
He got
throwing it. He gets the point across.
Exactly.
You're now listening
to the Illini Drive.
Illini Drive.
2 tickets to give away to the Illinois basketball game versus Wisconsin tomorrow night. That's at State Farm Center at 8 p.m. Tip-off's at 8 p.m. We'll give those tickets away at the end of the show. You have to call the number. It's 217-337-1071. And that's later on in the show, so keep your ears tuned for that one. And you follow the show on Twitter. That's at Illini Drive. Got all ways to reach to you. Reach to you 24/7 here to let you all know the updates on Illinois sporting world. How are you today, Joey Gelman?
I'm good. It's good to be back, and it should be a fun week of sports this week, Illini-wise, and maybe they can get it back on track, but, we'll get into that sooner than later.
Yeah. Well, we talked about the Illinois basketball team. The losing streak is now up to 7 games in a row. That's the first time since 1999 that the team has lost 7 games in a row. Bruce Weber never even lost 7 games in a row, I
was just going to ask that. Didn't Weber?
No, they lost 6 in a row. That was 2 years ago, and then 1. They had a couple, like 8 of 9s or something like that, but never 7 straight. So, yeah, it's been a while since the team has been this bad for this stretch of games, and it looked like it was just going to very easily go into that the game Saturday night against Iowa. Iowa jumps out to a 21-point lead in the first half, and the game was all but over. The people were getting ready to leave. The boos were coming. And then all of a sudden, Illinois wakes up, makes it a game by coming and actually having a lead in the second half. They cut the lead to halftime of 4, took a lead in the second half, but could not finish. Iowa prevails in that game. Now, I'm wondering, guys, were you encouraged by Illinois, or just how encouraged were you by the performance on Friday or Saturday?
I mean, I was most impressed with how well the freshmen did. They came off the bench and played really well. That was like I was talking to one of my reporters, Eric Prado, about. That was probably one of the best games, not stat-wise for Kendrick Nunn, but just the little things that he did really made a difference in that game. I mean, Malcolm Hill also had a pretty solid game, but Kendrick Nunn, as if like Gross said, he's one of those players who makes bonehead mistakes, but in the next possession, he's still going to give it his all. He's not one of those freshmen who's just going to, have his head down and say, oh, man, I made a mistake, or I'm probably going to go on the bench after that. He just keep fighting. And, I mean, definitely the way they came back, that 20-point lead, that really showed the togetherness that they didn't have the last 6-7 games that they had the losing streak in.
Yeah, it's funny. They took that from being the worst the worst game of the 7-game losing streak, and making it the best game of the 7-game losing streak, if you can call it that. It just got out of hand very fast. It's like all of a sudden you looked up and you're like, wow. We're not playing. Illinois isn't playing so great, but to be down 21 points, it was sort of sudden. And then I think what really changed things around for the team was just a mentality change. It was all of a sudden they got to, and I'm not one for coach speak, but in terms of this team, toughness and togetherness really embodies it. If they're playing tough and they're playing together in terms of moving the ball well, and, setting each other up, not running isolation plays, toughness and togetherness, they really turned it on. And they took it right to Iowa with drive after drive after drive, getting fouled. And, they missed free throws on the end ones. But it got them back in the game. And then when Iki was able to hit a 3, it really started them.
Yeah, I think when the game started, Illinois kind of knew they were on a 6-game losing streak. It's kind of how it looked, of just starting out the gate that slowly. And I agree with you guys seeing it's a testament to their toughness. I mean, there was a point where you look over at John Gross is punching the pizza ad on the little scorers table there. Probably almost broke it. But, yeah, it showed toughness. I think a main takeaway is while the veterans on the team are still scoring, Bertram with 20, Tracy Abrams with double digits.
Yeah, 13, I believe.
13.
Yeah, or 11 maybe.
Okay.
Well, Bryce had 13. I don't remember. Go ahead.
Double digits at least. But it seems that they're not gelling as well together. It seems the freshmen are really taking steps here to make their presence known and looking to the future, seeing good play from Hill and Nunn and even Tate and spurts. And so moving forward, because I don't know how long it'll take to get out of this slump here, but it's nice to see at least just the freshmen getting their feet wet under them and seeing how they can go on.
Especially against a good team like Iowa. I mean, Iowa third best in the conference, just under the heavy hitting teams such as Michigan, Michigan State. I mean, we touched a lot on the players, but how about the crowd energy? Man, that was nuts from the Orange Crush, and just a lot of locals being at the game. That was probably one of the most loudest I heard the crowd in a long time, probably almost any
I
other
hadn't
game.
realized this. That was the first game, the Orange Crush Big Ten game that they've been to.
Really?
Because the first two games,
we're
over the break. They've been on the road, it seems like a lot, too.
Yeah.
So, yeah. That was the first time the Orange Crush had actually been to a Big Ten game this year.
And John Gross said after the game that he didn't like that the fans were booing. I mean, I was in the stadium. I didn't really know what he was referring to. The only booing I heard was when, I don't know who it was, but someone clobbered little Jalen Tate, little adorable Jalen. And he got called for the foul, and that drew some really loud boos. But other than that, I didn't hear anything.
Yeah, and Gross didn't really want to go into it today either about what he was specifically talking about. So I didn't. Most of us didn't hear it either.
And I don't think that wasn't really the point. The crowd was great on Saturday for the most part, and they got behind that comeback, and they didn't leave. Sitting up in the bleachers, you saw really how much they cared about Illinois basketball succeeding, that they're willing to stay through, what was a horrible first
I for one, thought that they went down 21. I thought the game was over.
I thought the game was over when they were down 15.
True. I mean, I thought,
It was like-
I didn't think they had a chance
Yeah.
to begin with. And when they went down big, I was going to, is this the worst team in the Big Ten? And it was an easy yes to me. To see them battle back like that was, it was encouraging as far as if you want to talk about can they really break out of this. You mentioned this a little bit earlier, Joey, and I'm going to go back to you. Some people had an issue down the stretch. Illinois had the small lead and the game was close. Gross went to the 5 starters, as he has all year. Nunn had 7. Hill had 7. I think they combined for 5 assists. Some people said you probably should have gotten one of those guys in there.
Yeah, I think he should have. I think at the pace the game was going, while Bertrand had a good game in terms of in the points category, I feel as though your freshmen were the spark of that game and brought you back into that game with.
Well, you should not say that should took Bertrand out now.
No.
Okay.
I'm saying just like you could keep him in, but with the other guys, maybe spell Tracy Abrams for a little bit with a Kendrick Nunn or a Jalen Tate, just down the stretch to keep the momentum going there, because they were making some great hustle plays or drives to the basket that really, one, got the crowd going, which gives you a lot of motivation to keep going, and 2, just they were putting you in a position to really gain momentum and take leads, which they did later in the game. So I think at least one of them, either Hill or Nunn, should have been in there.
You could argue that, but at the same time, I think Gross, you've got your 5 starters. They're your starters for a reason. It's because they're your best players.
The dance with what brought you here.
Yeah. What brought Illinois to that game? The starters didn't show up. But, they still are the guys that Gross, at the end of the day, trusts. Right. And,
that's what I meant, yeah.
I know what you meant. Okay. I was just giving you crap.
Yeah. Torrence, would you have stuck with your 5 starters, or you put both, or Hill and Nunn, and what do you do?
Kind of a little bit similar to what Eliot said. I'll probably keep the starters in because, once again, those are the guys who got them there in the first place. And it just goes to show that, a lot of times in college basketball, people rely on just like high-flying freshmen, and a lot of freshmen play good. Obviously, we don't have a Jabari Parker on our team, but this is a team in which, Gross utilizes his upperclassmen and really wants them to play well. So I think it's just a little bit of a trust factor because also in the last few games, those was the guys who struggled as well. So I guess he wanted to just keep them in and probably see if they make something happen at the end. I guess it was just a whole thing of maybe just experience.
What I will say is I didn't like the way that the starters played at the end of the game. I thought you could.
And they've had troubles closing the game all season.
Right.
They changed the style, what they were trying to do. It was more, okay, Ray, here, get the ball at the top of the key, see if you can get your man off guard so you can drive.
Right.
And, that didn't work. Pass to Joe because we still have 30 seconds left on the shot clock, Yeah. And Joe tried the same thing. And then, it's a cycle and it didn't open up.
Well, the big thing also was that Iki came up, he was having cramps at the end of the game. And Gross said that was on him, that he said, hey, I thought John was okay, and I played him. And so in hindsight, Iki probably should not have been in the game, which means you go small and you probably put Kendrick Nunn in there somewhere, and which is what I was saying they probably should have done. Just because you got a guy who can score and make a big impact play, and you need that. If you're going to pull off an upset, you need it. And Iki hadn't been shooting great in this game and really the last couple games. So
he airballed a couple.
Yeah,
and
last
two he shot.
And they said it was because he was hurt, and that's not like him to airball, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would have, hurt or not, I'd have put Kendrick Nunn in. And I said, hey, because this guy can go out there and he'll make a dumb turnover, then he'll get a blocked shot in the other half. Yeah. On the other end, or he'll make a big time play and get a three from the corner.
That block shot was very impressive on his heart. I think that was like the peak of the game. Illinois was up 5 points, and he made that turnover, and it was like, oh no, here we go, and then he blocked it. But then
it was fun.
And then Iowa proceeded to come back and win. But at that point, things were looking pretty great for the Illini.
And then when you talk about the style of play there, if you put a guy like Kendrick Nunn in, which is a dual threat player and both is a very good shooter, but also has the ability to drive and elude defenders, that right there keeps the momentum in your favor, and it's not changing the drastic style of play that we saw occur when you put all 5 starters back in.
Now, the offense did play better. I mean, that's the first time they scored 70 points. Since they played Wisconsin, a lot of those points came in garbage time. We'll get to that a little later. But, I mean, Joe had 20. Rice and Abrams both had double figures. I don't know what Egu had, but he had, I think, maybe 8 or 6, which is kind of what you want from him.
Egu had 6.
How many rebounds he had?
Like 2. He didn't have many rebounds.
Not many.
Yeah.
What did we say last week? That 4 starters have to get at least 8 points.
I think that was
We had 3 with at least 8, that's the wrong team. We had 4 with at least 8.
Okay.
Iki had 9. Egu had 6. He was actually the lowest scorer of the starters.
Yeah.
And
then you got some stuff you got points off your bench, which is normally nothing.
Right.
So this was their best offensive game, I think, in the Big Ten. They placed the Big Ten. They shot the best.
Yeah.
Are we encouraged by that? I mean, I think definitely.
I think this game was actually quite encouraging. And what I said after the game in my tweet that everyone saw, of course, was if you're not putting a lot of stock in this season, Saturday night's game was great for Illinois because it showed you sort of the young talent that you're working with. Also that you have some guys in Rayvante and in Nana Egwu who aren't as bad as we thought they were a few days ago. So obviously a loss is a loss. You're not going to be happy. But I think there's a lot of encouraging signs from this game, the offense being absolutely one of them.
Yeah. Now, I was wondering about the biggest concern for this team as far as trying to break this schneid. And we've talked a lot about offensively. They had a lot of times they were trading baskets on defense this time, too. And defense really isn't that big concern, but another thing is closing games down the stretch. I believe 6 of their 9 losses, they've either had the lead or been tied for the lead, and then obviously lost the game. So are we concerned? Is that the biggest concern, that down the stretch, not being able to execute is probably the biggest weakness here?
I would think so. I mean, there's certain scenarios, and that happens with every sports team, where if you come back and maybe get a lead or you're getting close, you kind of lax off what you're supposed to be doing, whether it's the set offense you're supposed to be running or defensively. And so I think that could be an issue for them in terms of not closing games. Is when they took that 5-point lead and finally came back, it was maybe a little mindset change of, oh, hey, we came back here and now we can relax a little bit. And then when you let that shot clock go down a little more, then you get out of your rhythm and your system, and then it ultimately can bite you in the end.
Yeah, I think Gross said, too, that towards the last 5 minutes of the game, they were up by at least about
They were up
five.
by five and change to go.
Yeah, and it just also seemed like some of the defense lacks too. I mean, Iowa is a team that run the ball, and like one thing Gross said that their transition defense was pretty bad, and it was like up and down. They played good, and then they slowed down again. And when they slowed down, that's when Iowa really took the lead. So it's really just a little bit similar to what Joey said, just getting comfortable at the end and kind of just scrapping. They need to kind of play consistent the whole game.
I think that it is I still tend to the offense as far as their biggest concern because I just don't think they can score consistently enough. But it is a problem. I think that they've had these times where they can't close. And it's something I thought wouldn't be a problem because I thought they'd have a guy who we can give the ball to and say, hey, go score or get fouled. And that being Rayvonte.
I think the biggest problem is a style of play. It's a mentality thing, an attitude thing. Because I really think that when they're aggressive, that's when they're able to gain an advantage on people. When they're playing very, very hard defense, which we saw them, they didn't give up a field goal in the last 7+ minutes of the first half to a team that they had just allowed 34 points to in the first 12 minutes. So what does that say? It's a problem with how they're playing. It's not like they can play great and they can play really terrible.
Yeah. And they can switch like that.
Exactly.
Like, doesn't it? Yeah.
Exactly. And then, it carries over to the offensive end too. When you're driving, when you're sharing the ball, you're seeing better things. When you're playing angry, playing like an underdog, you're seeing Illinois at its best. But when they start to sort of...
But they're an underdog every game.
Right.
So I don't understand that. Then.
But then you see them get a 5-point lead, foot off the gas a little bit, get back into the offense, give Ray the ball, say go score. But, that's not what you were doing up to that point to get that lead back.
Yeah. Up next is against Wisconsin. Wisconsin comes here to State Farm Center tomorrow night. It's 8 p.m. on the Big Ten Network. We got 2 tickets to give away for that, too. That's coming at the end of the show. So be ready for those. Wisconsin, with the losing streak, began. They lost that. They were 2-0 in the Big Ten, ranked number 23, 23rd in the country, Illinois was. Go up to the Kohl Center against the 4th-ranked Wisconsin and get clobbered. I think it was 95-70 off the top of my head, I think it was.
Yeah.
And they have not, it's been all downhill from there. It's now up to 7 in a row. How about the mighty have fallen? Illinois was ranked 23, seemed like a shoe-in for the NCAA tournament. Mm-hmm. And obviously they haven't won a game in a month.
Illinois fans should be used to this by the 3rd year in a row we're talking.
And Wisconsin's probably even more shocking. Number 4 in the nation, probably the popular pick to go to the Final Four at the very least. And the latest rankings just came out, and they're not even on them. Mm-hmm. Lost 5 of the last 7 for them. So we're going to talk a little bit into commercial break. We're going to talk about which of those collapses is more surprising and hey, what the heck is going on with Wisconsin. It's the Illini Drive here on WPGU 107.1.
You're watching Illini Drive on Urbana Public Television. Tune in Monday nights at 6 p.m. to listen live on WPGU 107.1.
Illini Drive here on WPGU 107.1. Lots to get to here for Illinois basketball. And what is right now probably the most optimistic we can be during a 7-game losing streak, I guess.
That was a great loss.
Right, yeah, exactly. And I'm not a fan of moral victories at all, but I felt like a moral victory could be taken from that game. That's
I think moral victories are relative. When you're mired in 7 games of losing.
Right. It's tough to do it, but
you're a lifelong Cubs fan.
Yeah.
And you don't believe in moral victories.
No.
What are you doing?
I didn't. It's not very fun. That's what it is.
I haven't heard moral victory since the football season.
Exactly. Which I don't want to go back to that place. National Signing Day is Wednesday. How you guys celebrating?
Going to class.
Yeah, exactly.
Taking a nap.
You're gonna miss out all the 3-star recruits that get signed. The live chat goes up at 6 a.m. So
yeah, local Jimmy Fitzgerald the other
Jimmy
day.
Fitzgerald did get signed. So congratulations for him. It doesn't get me that excited. Sorry. Back to the basketball team. We talked about they're going to be up against Wisconsin tomorrow night at State Farm Center. tickets still will get weight for that, so stay tuned. These two teams have both fallen from grace. Last time they met, Illinois was 23, Wisconsin was 4. They're both unranked. More surprising of a collapse, you going Illinois, you going Wisconsin's?
I'm gonna definitely go Wisconsin just because of how strong they started. But I mean, then again, it's the Big Ten. It's one of those conferences which, I mean, every night somebody brings it. Pretty much some guy pretty much a team from the bottom feeder could have an upset. I know Michigan lost recently, thanks to Indiana. And Indiana,
That's right.
Yeah, it was Indiana, and then Indiana wasn't as good, but Yogi Ferrell had an amazing game. I caught some of that towards the end, and just pretty much. I mean, every given night somebody could lose, so you never know.
The old cliche that anything can happen in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Except if you're playing Illinois, you're probably going to win. Which one are you more shocked about?
More shocked about Wisconsin as well. I mean, you touched upon it earlier how at Wisconsin's when Illinois' collapse happened, and after they beat us, that's when their collapse happened. So I think it's much more shocking for a team that started, 16? They had 16 wins, and then to drop these 5
5 out of 6.
5 out of 6 here. It's pretty surprising for that high of a ranked team. I think it's much more surprising than Illinois, because Illinois you weren't really expecting that good of a start that they had. So I think for Wisconsin it's a much bigger deal.
Well, it's not only a ranked team, but it's Wisconsin we're talking here. Bo Ryan that's one of the most solid programs out there. Like, you never expect them to fall into, you'd expect them to kind of be above a slide like this.
Mm-hmm.
Usually those guys can regain their composure after losing a couple games, but I mean, 5 of 6 for them is very surprising. But Illinois,
Go ahead.
I think there's definitely a case to be made for it.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Because they're not playing the way they were playing earlier in the year. It's like
two different teams.
It's almost hard to explain.
It is.
I think it's harder to explain.
And again, like I said, Wisconsin was a pick for a minute to go to the Final Four, and after watching them against Illinois, I was convinced, and I said, "Oh yeah, they're really good," which is why I didn't really overreact to that first loss.
Right.
For Illinois, I was like, "Yeah, you know what? That's maybe one of the 2 or 3 best teams." But for Illinois to go from being ranked top 25 to they are not even going to make the tournament, that blows my mind. How that happened. I mean, and you guys are forgetting. I'm thinking that they lost to Northwestern, who I know is, 3rd in the Big Ten, or whatever it is now, 4th in the Big Ten now. But Northwestern isn't any good.
Wisconsin lost to them too.
Yeah, well, exactly. Northwestern isn't any good, and they lost maybe the worst game in college basketball history. Illinois did
43-40.
that game. Illinois lost to Purdue
At home.
I mean, they've had some bad losses. They haven't been competitive. It's almost, like you said, it's hard to explain, and I think you guys maybe I feel like you guys are underselling just how far Illinois has fell. They weren't as high up as Wisconsin, but they've gotten pretty far down.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, the way this team is constructed is, it's like this shouldn't be happening.
Right.
You've got a guy in Rayvonte Rice who's supposed to be able to just go out and get you a game, like Yogi Ferrell does for Indiana. And you've got a coach whose mentality is about shooting the 3, and a lot of young guards out there who are capable of doing that. Certainly they haven't been, but you've got Nana Egwu going 0 for 2 games, and he's not even trying to get points in the paint. When he's a 7-footer that put on 15 pounds in the offseason for, I guess,
jump shot.
Yeah, to shoot jumpers. But yeah, it just shouldn't be going down like this for Illinois.
No. Have you guys had a chance to watch Wisconsin? What is going on with them? I know they had the weird loss to Ohio State recently, but it was Ohio State the last game. They just lost.
59,
they had the lead. Yeah, but I mean, what's going on with them? Is this something that is correctable, or do you feel like they are just not as good? They were overrated a little bit.
Well, I think they were overrated a little bit, but I think it's correctable in the sense that it's something that I don't think it's a funk like it is with Illinois. I think it's just they'll get some wins. They're not going to continue to spiral downward. I think that they just need. It's just, I don't know what it is. They're going out and they're losing these games that they should win. They lose to Indiana by 3. They lose to Ohio State by a point late. They lose to Northwestern at home. These kinds of things. I I don't know if they're explainable. Wisconsin hasn't been able to be as physical as they were in the first part of the season. But I do think that they'll rebound because what makes it so surprising? Bo Ryan is going to have his team ready to play.
Right.
And I expect that to...
The biggest for me, and I'm going to cut you off here real quick.
That's fine.
3 straight losses at the Kohl Center. Wow.
Yeah.
They don't lose there ever. I mean,
No.
that is almost hard to explain.
And just the road is not going to get easier because the next, I think, 3 out of 4 games against the best 3 teams in Big Ten. They play Michigan State at home, play Minnesota at home, and then they play Michigan and Iowa on the road. So 2 tough ones on the road.
Yeah, 3 out of their next 5 are... But then they got, 2 against Minnesota and Illinois.
Yeah.
So
And
they should get back on track a little bit.
in the Big Ten, like we said, regardless. But correctable for Wisconsin, are you saying they're done?
I think it's correctable. I mean, I haven't watched them as closely as I should, but I think it's correctable. I think just the Big Ten in general, there was such big expectation from last year that it just seems as though there was such a big expectation for this year, saying, okay, here's going to be all these Big Ten teams, jumping into the forefront of the conference and of the nation in general. And so seeing teams like them, Ohio State, and just kind of fall lower on the rankings, I think it's more of a shock, but I think it's correctable. Unlike Illinois, like you've mentioned, that's kind of in this stagnant funk.
John Gross says that's because, 1 to 12, this conference is better. So that's why maybe you don't have a couple of teams dominating. Are you buying that?
I am.
I am too.
Because Illinois is, definitively last, and Illinois is not a bad basketball team.
Yeah, you could margin their 11th or 12th, but I know what you're saying.
In at least in the standings,
right.
The way they have been playing, I think they're capable of being, as far up as 7 or 6.
When they were ranked, some people said they were the 4th best team in the Big Ten. I remember reading that a couple places. So 1 through 12, is this conference league better than last year? Does it feel like that?
Yeah, because just it's also teams. You got to think about it like this. It's also teams like Nebraska and Minnesota coming up as well, and getting a couple key upsets as well. So, I mean, it's weird to see Illinois last place, but at the same time, it's college basketball, and this is one of those conferences that you could get an upset almost every night.
I think this conference is better than last year, 3 through 12.
Right.
Maybe. Well, no, I'd say Michigan State is better, but Indiana and Michigan were better last year than Michigan State is this year.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
They're on the same tier, but I think the bottom of this conference has improved.
Yeah.
And that's where the difference lies. That's why it's so hard for teams to dominate, which is what has made Michigan and Michigan State so impressive.
Where are you ranking Wisconsin right now in the conference? Because they're not. Michigan State obviously better. Michigan's better. Iowa's better. You putting them at 4. Where else? Where are we going?
I mean, Northwestern right now is garnering attention.
But I want you to tell me Northwestern's not better than Wisconsin.
Not according to the game they played.
Yeah. But you think if you're putting your ranking, as far as what you've seen in these teams, where's Wisconsin going?
Put them around 6 or 7.
So, who else do you got ahead of them? Then those 3. You say the Michigans. Well, we got Michigan's, Iowa. You putting Ohio State ahead of them?
Yes.
I think
You're
I think Ohio State's ahead of them.
Who? You're going 6 or 7?
Yeah, Indiana.
Okay. You put Indiana ahead. Would you guys agree with that? I don't.
I know. I think
Yeah, I don't either.
I think Wisconsin's probably 5th.
I was going to go with 5, too.
Yeah, just under Ohio State comfortably.
Because like you mentioned earlier, you can never count them out with Bo Ryan at the helm there. Between Thad Matta for Ohio State and then Bo Ryan there, whatever happens to them throughout the season, there's always going to be that bounce back.
You guys are all putting Ohio State as better than Wisconsin, too.
I think so.
Easily.
I think.
Here's a lunatics.
Thank
you.
I wouldn't say easily.
Okay.
I mean, this subject to change.
Sure, obviously. Yeah.
But I think right now they're playing like about the 9th best team in the conference.
Sure.
But I think they're. I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
I'm saying.
See, and I am too. I think they should have beat Ohio State from Tinsburg. They lost the game. And no one gives you points for should win. But, I think they're better than Ohio State still. I've kind of lost some faith in Ohio State, actually.
Yeah.
As opposed to Not as much as I've lost in Wisconsin.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm back and forth on Ohio State. I think they're a team with a lot of potential that is not
doing anything with it.
Yeah, not doing a whole lot with it at this point. I think Northwestern's an interesting team.
Do you? First time they had a Big Ten Player of the Week this week named today. First time in, I think, 2 years.
Solid.
Maybe 3.
John Scherner, right?
Yeah. Crazy.
He's still there?
No, he's
No,
no.
no,
He was the last guy.
He's been on that team forever.
He's not Aaron Kraft.
Probably, was it probably
That guy
Trey
never
Demps?
graduates.
I know he's like the best player on their team.
I forget who it was.
Trey Demps.
Yeah.
No, I don't care if we got named it today.
Oh,
I don't know.
okay.
Yeah.
But where you put Northwestern, I still don't think they're any good.
Well, they won their last
Look at
two.
their roster.
Okay.
I know they've
Okay.
well overachieved. And it's a great job from Chris Collins, but they're not any good.
Okay. That's fine. I mean, they've won their last 3 road games.
You are what your record says you are, huh?
Yeah. Wisconsin, Minnesota, Indiana, all on the road. Those are all tough environments.
Sure.
I would say. So, they play like good underdogs. They're what Illinois should aspire to be. Which I just said that about
You
basketball. That's the sad truth
did.
right now. They're playing with the underdog mentality that Illinois lacks. And that's what's getting them these
Illinois
wins.
got more talent than them. They don't have to be.
That's true.
Northwestern. Yeah.
But, they lost to Northwestern 49-43.
Winnable game for the Illini if they lose tomorrow night. This will be the first time in 40 years an Illinois team has lost 8 straight games in a season. That is hard to believe.
Yeah.
Actually, it's not. 8 games in a season is a lot, but
Yeah.
40 years is a long time.
You would think like the past, like the Weber era, you would think that they lost more than that. I couldn't believe that.
Yeah, I felt like they lost for like 3 years in a row.
Yeah, exactly. But 8 games straight that's a lot.
Yeah.
Because you play a cupcake every once in a while. You play a Northwestern.
Yeah, but there are no cupcakes. This year.
Exactly.
And go ahead.
No.
All right, fine. I think it's you look at it like 8 straight, like, oh, I can't possibly get to 8, but that's like sort of the exact mentality that allows a streak like this to accumulate. It's because, like, oh, we can't lose another one in a row.
Right.
It's just like every single night, it's its own challenge, its own streak. They could go and lose to Wisconsin. Every game left on Illinois' schedule is a losable game.
Right. Yeah.
It's like a coin flip.
I'll say one thing. I think if Illinois was to play the way they did against Iowa, and they at the same time you got to think about it like this: they catching a Wisconsin team that's lost 2 in a row, and it's they a little bit. I think the right word to say is probably vulnerable right now. They're playing them at a good time right now, probably at a beatable time right now, as opposed to when they first played them and got blown out by over 20. So I think if they came out that same mentality, they have a chance to win this game.
This is exactly when you want to play Wisconsin. They're coming on the road. They've lost some games in a row. They're not ranked for the first time in a while. And Illinois is coming off like we said, their best game in a while. Mm-hmm. This is the perfect situation for an Illinois upset. Who you got?
Who do I got? Well, I agree that they have the talent to probably win. And
Illinois you're talking about?
Illinois, yes, sorry. Okay. Illinois has the talent to win. I just don't know. I think I can't imagine Gross and the staff can allow this to extend. I feel like there's got to be a certain point where they at least step up and address this issue themselves, because there's so much you could do on the court versus kind of giving your team a
little it's not like they haven't been.
Yeah,
I understand that. They've been trying stuff,
I'm sure
it just hasn't worked.
Different playbooks, they had all of it.
I think there's got to be one breakthrough moment, but I just don't know if it's this weekend. I think even though you're catching Wisconsin at a vulnerable time, and you are looking for revenge because you lost so badly last time to them, I still think Wisconsin will come out on top.
At home?
Yeah, I think so.
Where you going?
Yeah, like I said before, I think like if they come out with that same mentality against Iowa, I think it's time for them to end that streak. I think Illinois is going to win this one because they're catching just Wisconsin at a good time.
I think that Wisconsin is going to play with some urgency itself. And if they do, I have no inclination to give Illinois the benefit of the doubt. I said last week on this show that I wasn't going to pick Illinois until they showed me something, and they sort of did at Iowa, but, it's like they punched through a wall and then instead of breaking the wall down, they just sat there and looked through the hole, and then Iowa punched them in the face. That's a beautiful metaphor for you.
I think it
but
works, yeah.
no, I think Wisconsin's going to win. I think they also need to win, and
Right.
they're going to put their priorities in front of Illinois.
And again, I do not think this is going to be a blowout like before. I think Illinois is going to, like you said, play as emergency, but I feel the same for Wisconsin, and I still am not buying that they're as bad as they've been. So I'm going to pick Wisconsin, too, and I thought about this one. I was very close to picking Illinois.
You thought about it this week.
Yeah,
That's good.
exactly. This is the first time actually in a while because I have been easily picking against Illinois. I'm going to put a scenario out here, too, because Illinois also, after this game tomorrow night, they also play Penn State on Sunday, and we're talking about worst team in the Big Ten, Penn State, Nebraska, and Illinois.
Penn State's in the conversation.
Yeah. Remember, Illinois beat the last win Illinois has actually is against Penn State. It came on January 4th, I believe, at State Farm. Going to Penn State, I'm going to put the scenario out first. Let's say Wisconsin goes out, runs away with the game, blows Illinois out. So now all that good feeling crap from Iowa's gone. And it's up to 8 in a row. You got to go on the road to Penn State. Does that change this team's mentality? Do you think then, this could get to 9, 10 in a row? Or is that even not you think Gross won't even, that would be a factor?
I think it could start to be. I would like to think that Gross can just, shrug it off, but I don't think the players can shrug it off once it starts to mount like this. Penn State hasn't been super great. They were able to steal a road win against Ohio State in overtime by 1 point. Their other 2 wins came at home against Nebraska and Purdue, who are in their company at the bottom of the conference. So certainly a winnable game. Illinois should win. I'm not gonna.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I'm not gonna pick them.
No, not yet.
They're not winning.
Yeah, I think no matter what happens this weekend, I think Illinois can move on and get a win at Penn State, even though it's a road game. Just it doesn't seem like a matchup with Penn State should be that intimidating.
They beat Penn State pretty handily when they came here.
They beat them by 20, 75-55.
Yeah.
So I feel like no matter what happens, which is I would suggest or think a loss this weekend, I think Penn State, they might have a shot at winning.
Wisconsin blows out Illinois. They go to Penn State on Sunday. What happens?
I think I got the same feeling. I just don't think Gross is going to allow his team to have just that big of a streak, especially within the last 40 years. And I just think they just ready to get the taste off their mouths, especially regardless of a win or loss. A win to be perfect, especially against a Wisconsin team, but I don't think they're going to lose both, not only against Wisconsin, but Penn State as well.
I'll say this. I think if they do beat Penn State after losing to Wisconsin, it's not going to be a pretty win.
No.
It's not going to be another
vintage,
20-point blowout.
Yeah. It'll be the Illinois-Purdue football where you're just less bad than the other team. So
we brought that up again, huh? Illinois-Purdue football.
We've done a lot of football references. Too many for my taste.
That's the state of Illinois basketball, right?
However, I don't think they're going to beat Wisconsin. I think they're definitely going to beat Penn State.
Okay.
I have pretty much, unless they go out and get destroyed by Wisconsin tomorrow night, I'll have to rethink that because I think that could be a big hit. But I think they're going to compete with Wisconsin and be able to kind of use a little of that momentum and steal a win against Penn State there. And then you got some easier games because Nebraska comes up, and then it'll feel a little better. They're still not making a tournament or anything, but it'll be I think that the streak will be over by the next time we come to the show.
That'd be refreshing.
It would. It would, for finally. No more losing streaks. It's kind of weighing on our hair. Eliot's hair is turning gray here. So we're going to take a commercial break, and we're going to get to the not-so-Super Bowl where, quite frankly, the Seahawks just dominated. It's got some people saying that this Seattle defense was better than the 85 Bears. We're going to take a break here. It's Illini Drive here on WPGU 107.1.
You're watching Illini Drive on Urbana Public Television. Tune in Monday nights at 6 p.m. to listen live on WPGU 107.1.
Back here on the Illini Drive here on WPGU 107.1. We still got 2 tickets to give away to the Illinois versus Wisconsin basketball game tomorrow night. That's at 8 p.m. at State Farm Center. You're going to have to call into the station that's coming up here at the end of the show.
Which isn't that hard to do.
No. We're going to take the third caller, and you get a free pair of 2 tickets. So we'll give you that number here right before we go off the air at 7 o'clock. So should be a good one. But the Super Bowl was last night. The biggest secular holiday maybe of the non-holiday. I don't even know if it's really a holiday. We can call it a holiday of the year.
Should be a holiday. Should be a federal holiday.
Yeah, we've talked. Yeah, Eliot wants us to get days off, multiple days off.
We shouldn't have to do this show today.
No, we
Super
shouldn't.
Bowl.
We should have our Super Bowl hangover, but we dragged ourselves out. No one saw this coming. For Seattle. I mean, I think a couple of us picked Seattle. I don't remember. I know I did. I don't know who else did. But a couple of us, I think, Torrence picked wrong again, which we're used to. Illinois got no shot this weekend as Torrence picked them.
I gotta be the different one on the show. You know,
exactly.
I don't want to be the one who I'm
Yeah,
wrong.
well, I would agree with you. Then we both be wrong. So, no, obviously the Seattle Seahawks dominated the Broncos and Peyton Manning right off the start of the game. The fastest score in Super Bowl history. 12 seconds?
Which is amazing because Devin Hester returned to opening kickoff for a touchdown.
14 seconds.
Yeah, it took 14. Yeah, unbelievable. As far as hype, was this the most disappointing game in recent memory?
I would say absolutely yes.
Yeah.
This was pegged as heavyweight offense versus heavyweight defense. Mm-hmm. The matchup that most people would have predicted preseason if they were really boring. Mm-hmm. You know, it in recent years we've seen a lot of 6 seeds. None of that.
No.
Best teams in each conference.
This is the BCS putting us there.
Yeah, exactly. And it was like a BCS. It's like the NFC was the SEC, and the Broncos were Ohio State.
Exactly.
Even worse, honestly. I felt like I was watching Illinois again.
Okay.
No, I felt like I was watching Illinois play the Seahawks.
Yeah.
Is what I felt like.
Well, you did see orange and blue, though. So.
There you go. Most disappointing game? Did you guys going with that too?
Yeah, I think so. It's just they started out of the gate. The Broncos at least just didn't look ready to play. I mean, obviously the first snap.
The center was. He was very ready to go.
Exactly.
The mascot was.
I saw somebody tweet that the city of Omaha wants Peyton to use another city after this game. I'll agree. I mean, I'm thinking about some other disappointing big games, and I'm thinking about some BCS games. I'm thinking about Alabama, Notre Dame. I remember being pretty excited. Maybe that was just myself.
Yeah.
But I think that game got some hype. And
you got to talk about the audience that we're looking to here. The Super Bowl is
the Super Bowl is the biggest
huge.
event of the year. So yeah,
it was the highest rated ever yesterday. It was I think 115 million people. Or something.
They break that record every year.
Yeah,
no, but yeah, it's I think because it was the Super Bowl and we heard the number one versus number one and all that stuff, it was over by the time. I mean, we went to get wings. I actually missed the first. It's a sin here. I should probably get my hand slapped, but I missed the first. Maybe halfway of the first quarter or so, and
didn't miss
came
much.
back, and it was over. It was 8-0, but it was all but over.
Yeah.
So, Seattle defense, we had all these guys making play. You got Chancellor, Malcolm Smith is the MVP. Mm-hmm. If I'd asked you to name some of these guys before, most people probably couldn't have.
Really?
How dominant was this defense? And are you willing to say more dominating than the '85 Bears Super Bowl victory?
I'm a Packers fan, so I have no qualms about saying yes.
So disqualify everything he's done.
No, I mean, it depends how you want to look at the word dominating. They're better. If you took the '85 Bears off the '85 Bears and put the 2014 Seahawks, you'd be in better shape, Chicago. But I think the Bears maybe had more success on a consistent basis throughout that entire season.
Sure, but I'm talking about in this Super Bowl game, were they better
than the 45-10 champion Bears? Yes, because they played the best offense in the history of the NFL.
I don't think they were better. It's just I think it was so unexpected because you look at the league now and it's all offense heavy, and you look at even the Bears when they hire Mark Trestman. There's no defense involved in that. It's for the league is going. I mean, he's had the same track record as Lovie Smith had with offense coordinators, with defense coordinators. The whole league is going offensive, and so I think when people say, "Whoa, look at this Seattle defense that was so present, so dominating yesterday," I think it jumps a lot to people's heads. I think they're very good, but I don't think I'd say they're better than the 85 Bears.
If it's one thing similar, I'll probably have to say just the mentality that both teams had, just that willingness. Like, both teams really played like they wanted blood after, especially the 85 Bears, and then you have the Seahawks team. That's one thing I'll say in comparison, but the Seahawks, I mean, they could be in conversation because they held, the Broncos to what were they, like 3?
Yes,
so sad to believe. And when the 85 Bears, I think they played the Patriots, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how much Patriots had? At least about
10.
10, yeah. So, I mean, and plus, I think the Patriots was the 10th best offensive team as opposed to the first and Peyton Manning, and you already know his legacy or whatnot. But the way they played him, I'll honestly say, I mean, they have a conversation for. I wouldn't say necessarily better, but I mean, at the same time, you can say that, they're not nowhere near them.
This was the number one team, not only offensive team in the league this year, but of all time. Mm-hmm. It's a quarterback who set the passing record for touchdowns, who's also one of the top 5 quarterbacks of all time.
Right.
In a league that is geared, all the rules are toward offensive stats. And they almost did not score.
They shouldn't have scored.
They probably should not have. Yeah, they didn't score. It feel like they didn't score.
Yeah.
How many times you said that line yesterday?
It came out a lot.
Like, the thing is,
impressive.
Yeah, you have to give a lot of credit to Seahawks defense, but let's also address the fact that the Broncos offense could not have played worse.
Right.
I saw a tweet from Pat 40. It said 96 teams have played in the Super Bowl. 95 of them have played better than the Broncos.
I'll probably agree with that.
They did everything wrong.
Yeah.
They did it wrong furiously and as aggressively wrong as possible.
Yeah.
When they did try and get into their offense, it was like 5-yard crossing patterns, which is just like red meat for the Seahawks defense, which is based around speed, and so they would get a lot of steam going into those hits.
But I do think a lot of that wrongness and badness was forced by Seattle. I mean, granted, Denver also played, just like you said, not very good, but
yes,
a lot of it because they were forced to by what the Seahawks were doing.
Right.
It's tough for me because I don't like. I try to stay away from overreacting, even though I like doing it. But the 85 Bears they always put on the pedestal as the best defense probably ever. So to call the Seahawks the best defense ever is kind of let's look at this here.
In the Super Bowl.
Right, versus Super Bowl, yeah. But, I mean, just thinking about it and looking at it, I didn't see the 85 Bears play. So maybe if I'd have watched that game and watched how they dominated the Patriots, I may think differently. Mm-hmm. But right now it feels, that was impressive.
Yeah, and I think Denver may have overthought things a little bit.
Sure.
Because they weren't 35 points worse than the Seahawks compared to the 49ers who, had a shot to win it at the end. Like the Denver, they were doing wrong things. I think if you had them play another game a week from now, it would be a much better game. Maybe we should just pretend that never happened.
I think they still get beat down, actually.
I do. Maybe. Yeah. But I don't think it would be nearly as bad.
Yeah, of course. We can't predict it would be that bad because we still didn't, no one thought that would happen. So.
Yeah.
Seattle's the youngest team in the NFL. Now this is one championship. This is maybe a little overreacting, but dynasty.
Already.
Can they build? Is that something that teams should go and say, holy smokes, this team could actually really put together a run here for a couple.
I think you got to do that.
Yeah.
I think this team is going to have trouble doing that. I saw the Super Bowl odds for next year came out, and the Seahawks were ranked highest, which I laughed at because
it happens every year.
When you win the Super Bowl, you're like the least likely team to win the Super Bowl the next year. It's just hard. That hunger, it goes away. I think you see it pretty much every year. It's just it's not the same when you're going back. So
none of the players ever played in the Super Bowl. Before this, and now they've all got a ring. So it's different,
right? And I don't know. I think it's premature, but that's the mentality you have to have. You have to say, "Hey, let's do this for 5 years.
Sure.
Let's win 3 out of the next 4." And
I don't know if I'd call it a dynasty. I think they.
It's not a dynasty now. I'm saying, can they get it?
I don't think they can become a dynasty. I think they can be good for maybe 2 or 3 more years. I don't know if that guarantees championships, but just be a very good team. And I think a lot of that is because they're really one of the few teams in the league that has a scheme and players defensively that can, well, one, stop the number one offense, which they did yesterday, and two, just stop all the teams in general. Because I'm guessing a lot of times with the Broncos, as dominant as they were, many of the defenses are very lower tier defenses in the league. And so I think because you have such a strong foundation, they can do that.
Yeah, a little bit more similar towards Eliot's point. Just not only NFL, but, you see that in almost any sport, NBA or whatever you want to call it. But
you talk about the rules changing toward offense?
No, just as far as, just winning back-to-back.
Oh,
it's so hard to have that mentality because you could tell the way Seattle played, after the whole Richard Sherman thing, the whole team was fired up. And the way they came out there, like I said earlier, they wanted blood. And how often are you going to see that for the next few years? They keep wanting it. They almost kind of had a target on their backs, but, they had one person who spoke for them on the team and everyone else is a little riled up. So, it's kind of difficult to see if that's going to happen in consistent years.
The other big thing of coming out of the Super Bowl is obviously Peyton Manning is getting a lot of the blame, a lot of the attention, and the L word, the legacy word, is coming back up because we have to debate someone's legacy after every game they play.
Right.
That's the thing. But Peyton Manning's legacy, do you think it's fair that this game affects it?
If he was to retire today, especially after that.
Go ahead. And then what would you say it is? What would you say his legacy is? And go ahead.
That's the thing about sports, regardless of it's not necessarily the fact that they lost, it's how they lost, how they pretty much got brutal throughout the whole game. And if he was to retire today, he already have, targets on his back because how they lost. But it affects it to an extent because they lost such a big margin. But you got to think of all the stuff he did in his career. Just a short span, MVP, and then the next 24 hours they got killed. In a sense, it affects it, but at the same time, you got to think of all the stuff that he did. But that's just how sports is, really.
I think it doesn't affect it. He does have one Super Bowl ring, which is good, but I feel as though he's just been one of the most dominant quarterbacks in the history of the league. As someone was saying it earlier on TV today that he changed the game. And they say usually, there's a coach or a rule change or something that changes the philosophy of the game, and they say his play changed how offenses work throughout the whole league. And so I think because of that, while he doesn't have as many Super Bowl rings as some people put him on a pedestal to have, I think he still probably will be considered the best quarterback.
Real quick, I think it does. The loss does affect his legacy. I think this season overall is a net positive for his legacy, but because he set the record, best offense ever. But you do have drawbacks from there. Another thing I want to touch on about that. He said that the word embarrassing to describe their performance was insulting. It was embarrassing. It was absolutely embarrassing.
It was a bad question too.
It wasn't.
It wasn't a great question. Ask him, how do you feel about something about the performance? Not put a word in his mouth.
Right. But to say that to try and say it wasn't an embarrassment, I think is
sure. I think it does impact his legacy. He's 11-12 guy. He has the most career playoff losses. Granted, that means you're there a lot, and he's been good enough to get there. But he's got the one Super Bowl, which greatly makes him not Dan Marino, as far as not having won one. But it is the same kind of deal every year where Peyton looks like he's got the best team, or they set all these records, they got all these high-flying offenses, and then they fall short. And that's kind of that's the thing. And I've been I didn't think the Broncos would make the Super Bowl all year because of that. And I just said, they should. And the AFC's not very good, but they find a way, it seems like, to lose. And fair or not fair, it has not always been his fault.
No.
But he's the quarterback, and he's going to get – and Tom Brady gets the blame. The credit for all the championship has not always been his fault.
Right.
Or not always been him. So that's what you get. It's what you sign up for when you play quarterback.
Yeah.
Great guy, great regular season player, but not a great postseason player. So it's kind of the thing there. I do think we need to stop debating everybody's legacy after 2 weeks, though.
It's annoying.
We're going to go to Badass of the Week here. No intro, and we're going to go ahead and start off. Whoever wants to step up.
I will, because it's about the Super Bowl. I'm not a fan of the Vikings. I'm not a fan of the Seahawks. So
You're not a fan of anybody that's not the Green Bay Packers. Let's get that right there.
The Bengals are all right.
Oh, God. The Bengals? What?
Where'd you grab that from?
I was just throwing a team out there. I don't know.
You would have been out
Torrence is wearing orange and black. So, so a guy who used to play for the Vikings that now plays for the Seahawks, generally don't like him. But Percy Harvin, if you're going to have one game that people remember you for, it's a good game to have that be the Super Bowl. Their first play from scrimmage was a 39, I think, yard run to Percy to sort of set the tone, if it hadn't been set already. And then his kickoff return for a touchdown was sort of breathtaking to watch. He ran angry, and it was pretty cool. So he had been struggling to get on the field, and he finally does on the biggest stage, and he had a heck of a performance. He had my vote for MVP. So,
mine's a little bit different. It's off of football. It's a story with the ABA, the old basketball with association, and the St. Louis Spirits signed a deal when the NBA merged, and all the teams that weren't going to make it got a cut of the revenue of the league or a payout. So the Kentucky team that was X'd from the league got over $3 million. And what the Spirits did is they said, you know what, we'll take $2 million. We don't want all the money, but we'll take 1/7 of all future revenue of television, because their owners were smart and saw that NBA was rising in television. So now the NBA still has to pay them that deal. They've paid the owners of the Spirits already over $300 million. They owe them $19 million this year, and then can buy them out for an additional $500 million settlement. So those two owners are the smartest people in the world for seeing TV's going to go that high up in revenue and ratings in the next 40, 50 years, and they're laughing all the way to the bank. So I was waiting to do that one for a while here for Badass of the Week.
wow.
So it's a lot of money for them.
Wow.
I felt like I learned something new today.
There you go.
A little bit of marketing, a little bit of econ. But I'll probably say my Badass. I also wanted to pick something a little shy away from football. But since the best sport, NBA, All-Star Weekend is coming up soon, I guess I'll have to do one of the players on the West Side who had just a monster game, and arguably probably one of the best centers in the league, Kevin Love. Just monster performance this past Saturday against Atlanta, 43 points, 19 rebounds, and it was funny because I seen speaking of the Atlanta Hawks, I seen a tweet that said I think after the Seahawks won, I think the Atlanta Hawks Association, you seen that was terrible. They said Seahawks, Blackhawks, now it's our time to win. Atlanta Hawks. I mean, I honestly don't think that's going to happen, but I just want to throw that out there.
I'm going to wrap it up here quickly. Here, John Snyder, the Seahawks general manager, got a photo tweeted at him. He was shirtless, wearing the WWE Championship belt, celebrating in the locker room. That's how you celebrate a championship.
The only way to do it.
As Aaron Rodgers
whatever. We got 2 tickets to give away here for the men's basketball game against Wisconsin tomorrow night. You're the third caller to 217-337-1071. Again, call now for 2 tickets to the Illinois men's basketball game against Wisconsin tomorrow night at State Farm Center, 8 p.m. 217-337-1071. That's going to do it for this edition of Illini Drive. We're back next Monday, same time at 6 p.m. Now back to Champagne's Alternative, WPGU 1071.